What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. I'm BobbyFi with my man, Eric Sheets Haber. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I did not play much, and I had a very disappointing golf. I would have had a serious sweat going into Sunday. I was like 30 points off of first, but I had the miscut Patrick Rogers, and everybody else was pretty much in the top 20, so including Sink, obviously. So that would have been nice. But yeah, no good for golf for me. Ready to get after baseball and basketball this week. Sheets, how about you?
Yeah, so I wasn't for one golfer, I would have done fine.
Yeah.
Harris English just kind of, I don't want to say he torched me, I torched myself playing so much of him. But then at basketball, baseball was kind of a struggle. I did have a decent hit in NASCAR. Certainly did not make up for everything else, but I also did pretty nicely in MMA, considering that 30% of my lineups were dead due to a cancellation of a fight. Which was basically what happened was they canceled the fight literally 1 minute after lock. And basically that cost like 60. I had total ownership of like 36% for one guy and 24% for another guy across the industry.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna just, I'm gonna be going. I'm gonna be out Wednesday through Sunday, but you never know. I might pop in. I'm always. You never know. There's always a chance I might pop in. But so I got two full days of DFS at least. So I want to give you guys my best.
Let's do it, man. I'm into it. Wednesday's going to be interesting. We'll figure something out to do for that day because I've got two doctors actually that are sort of right at the times we record. And
that's the day I'm literally going to be on a plane. So
yeah, so I'll figure something out though. I can do something early.
That is actually a 12 o'clock start for baseball, by the way.
Oh, that actually works perfectly.
Yes, maybe for me too. Actually, it depends on when the flight goes off. So here's the deal. So with baseball today, right? It's kind of like, I don't want to say the anti-Bobby, but this is the way I look at it. So what I've been doing is, no matter how big the slate was, I've been playing very, very few lineups and with a decent amount of success. Yesterday, you know what? You weren't really following it. I was right on it, and I was putting in the Discord too. My favorite stack was Milwaukee, but just for whatever reason, I didn't play Vogelbach. I played like literally everybody else that did anything except for Vogelbach, who had 2 home runs. But today, for whatever reason, even though it's only a 6-gamer, I think I'm 150ing the 8 on DraftKings.
Is it an $8 on DraftKings? I thought it was a $7.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm looking. Oh, I was looking at the NBA. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we might have to do some business with that. I've been getting crushed in baseball so far this year, which is just really frustrating. But I'm ready to turn it around. This is getting kind of silly.
Well, what I like about it, again, it works and it's funny because I was thinking of doing 150 max day before even seeing that it was an 8, which made it more interesting for me because when we go into the pitching, I think there are a lot of ways you can go and a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
So in that type of situation, I think I'm going to spread it out. I'm going to practice my scripting and practicing my ownership stuff, and we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, let's go game by game here. Why don't you have a screen up already? And yeah, I think that it's obviously going to be very concentrated chalk in terms of ownership. I think like in terms of hitting, but starting out for this first game from a pitching perspective, I don't think on this slate I'm gonna be playing Kevin Gausman, and even at this cheap price, I might play him a little bit, but I'm actually sort of flirting with the idea of stacking. I kind of like this whole game. I like Philly, and as good as Gausman can be, we've seen him have those blow up games in the past so many times. I know it's a little different in San Francisco, but this obviously the huge stadium downgrade. I'm just interested in Philadelphia a little bit today, and I'm also slightly interested in San Francisco against Chase Anderson. But obviously, Gausman is a guy who is going to show up from projections and everything else as being a good play at 6.6.
This is why I'm telling you that I think it's a good max entry day. And for those of you that never did it, but never do max entries, I think that if there's like a quarter jukebox today or something like that you want that you can afford to do,
yeah,
I think this really is a good slate to get practice doing it because I think every game I'm going to have very similar opinions to what Bobby just kind of threw out there. That like I could see playing this pitcher and I can also see playing against him. And I think he might be a good play, but he's got question marks and all this stuff. And I totally agree. Like Gausman for me is one of, four top pitchers I could play, but then and not to mention 3 guys right underneath that I think are totally playable. So, and that's only on a 12-game slate. Excuse me, a 12-pitcher slate. So so I totally agree. I think Gausman's in play is going to be one of the guys I use when I'm max entering, but it's certainly not prioritized. You know what I mean? Like if I was playing one lineup, I don't even know if I would play it. And I completely agree, by the way, with San Francisco. San Francisco, just so you know, the way what I'm using right now is they're actually on both sites one of my top 3 stacks. Turns out, a FanDuel, you don't even need them, right?
Right.
But I like San Francisco in this spot. I like the like everybody cheap, and it could be one of those weird days where you can leave money on the table even if you really like the San Francisco guys. But I do like San Francisco. I didn't get to the Philly hitting, but definitely I got to the San Francisco hitting, and literally on both sides.
I think Philly's pricing and the matchup against Gausman will keep their ownership low.
Okay.
I mean, it's a 6-game slate, and to get low ownership on this slate, I guess I would call them the second or third best offense on this slate overall, like just in no matchup considered. And I just don't think that I think we've seen the blowups from Gausman, and Philly's also. I mean, for years I've been pointing this out about them. They are sort of like they tend to be a good offense overall, but they tend to be a boom bust offense. They score runs in bunches. They have probably more double-digit run games than I think they were like 4th or something over the last year or whatever. Or last year they were anyway. But yeah, I think they're interesting. But I'm less interested in Gausman. Probably not going to play all the lineups, but if I was, I definitely would have a good portion of him. I just think that he's going to be owned, and I do think the matchup can get a little scary for him. So
the San Francisco guys, by the way, are going to be Belt, Dickerson, LaStella, Yaz, and Crawford.
Yep.
Okay, you want to move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so St. Louis and Washington, you have Flaherty and Joe Ross. I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go.
Again, like Flaherty for me is like he's like a 5th best guy for me, if you want to know the truth. Which for what I'm playing today is cool. You know what I mean? I'm gonna probably have some percentage of him, but if I were playing one lineup, I don't want to be scared of him, but he probably wouldn't be my top option. He'd probably be like my 4th option.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is that I know that Washington likes to take pitches that don't really strike out that much. And what I saw from Flaherty again in his first couple of starts is he was not exactly like bringing it right over the plate. You know what I mean? Like he was trying to dink and dunk a little bit around the edges, and that's kind of a rough spot. This you know what, this could be one of those games where you might help people out by getting the ump data. You know what I mean? Maybe I know we haven't done a really good job of that with the ump stuff.
Well, no,
I haven't.
We usually do, but we won't have it this time of day, obviously.
Okay, yeah, but maybe later we'll follow up on that. But I think that I would probably have a little bit of Flaherty, and as a weird thing, like if he ends up like really really low owned, I wouldn't mind a little bit of Ross either. Because I'm telling you, all the pitchers on this slate who are going to be projected to be the best plays, all could blow up in some form. Like all could have question marks, and maybe a Ross like just sucking along for 12 fantasy points might not be the end of the world. So I don't know. I'm probably going to have a little bit. Certainly not a priority of mine. I'm less inclined to get to the hitting than a little bit of the pitching.
Yeah, I hear you there. I am interested in the Cardinals' bats. I understand Joe Ross is really good against righties in general, and this lineup does suit him. But Joe Ross, we can't, after such limited starts, just assume this guy is back to being a good pitcher. This guy was considered one of the worst pitchers in baseball for a year and a half, and for good reason. I just don't know for sure that we can trust these recent things, and that's enough of a reason for me to stack a pretty talented lineup. Well, at least 1 through 4, pretty talented lineup. And you get to, I guess you'd have to use Molina as the catcher, and they're expensive. But I do wish they had more lefty power in here. I mean, Carlson, I think he has more power from the right side, but he's actually a reasonable one. And then Carpenter's looked better lately, so those would be your lefties. But I do have some interest in stacking St. Louis. I think they're a little bit behind San Fran and then Philly for me. So I also don't I'm sort of with you about Flaherty. Like the thing about Flaherty is that you'd love him against the Cubs. You'd probably love him more against like the Milwaukee guys like that. He has he can strike out a bunch of guys. He has got really good stuff, but he does, he's not a guy who goes right after everybody. He doesn't have efficient outs. He ends up getting his pitch count run up really, really fast. And that's why you see him pitching really well in his last couple of games, but only pitching 5 innings. And I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that again today.
I will tell you honestly, I mean, not to skip ahead, but between Bundy, Musgrove, Duffy, Gausman, Flaherty, Woodruff, May, and that's like 7 pitchers. I really could see any of them being the top pitcher.
I agree.
It's good. I'm telling you, I think it's going to be one of those slates. So
I mean, in all fact, what's crazy about that is that actually is like a I would say that would be unusual. But these days, like we've had so many pitching outlier performances, it's been crazy. Early in the season.
Right.
Rodon is the one that stands out the most, but there's been a lot.
Well, the one that stands out the most, we'll get to him in a minute.
Musgrove, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rodon did the same thing.
And Duffy's been out in another world also. So we'll get to all that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we get to that now, right? Oh, before we do, I just wanted to mention. I'm sure we will get to one-offs at the end, but I did note that my favorite shortstop was DeYoung at 3,800. So in case we forget, to go back to the shortstop, my favorite kind of cheaper shortstop would be DeYoung.
I do like DeYoung too. All right. So Royals and Rays here. Okay. It's like every pitcher is sort of getting their sort of good matchup here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Danny Duffy gets a team that other than Arozarena doesn't really like Brousseau. Okay. Like, but these guys are not like lefty killers, and they have a lot of really good lefties in their lineup who don't hit lefties well. So what are we doing with Duffy? So I actually have Duffy on as a guy I'm definitely considering. I think he's looked really good. He's always been a streaky pitcher with really good stuff at times. He can be electric. Tampa Bay doesn't terrify me here. I can't figure out. He's a guy I usually like to have some hedge stacks, especially if I'm stack playing big. But I don't really feel like doing that today. Outside of Arozarena and Brousseau, are both good plays on their own. I don't like playing Manuel Margot very much. I know he's been hitting better overall. I do like Adames in general, but I don't know. I'm just not like as in love with this. And then you can mix in one of the lefties and hope for better results than they've had in recent years. Like Meadows would be better than Lau, but I like both of them.
You like the KC bats at all?
Mildly interested. You do have a really strong wind. So that's another thing for the pitchers too. I mean, it's blowing in pretty hard it's 46 degrees. It's 15 miles an hour blowing in from left. I think this could be a spot where I'm not going to play Fleming, but I do think that Duffy does stay on my list between matchup and hitting environment. This seems like a very, very poor hitting environment from what I can tell. And I'll do some more research on that before our later show.
Yeah, I'll with the absence of like a real big win, like you're saying, though, I do have Kansas City as definitely playable. Like one of my top teams, probably my 4th best. Win without the wind in there. And if you did play that, Soler remains cheap. And then there's Dozier, Benintendi, Santana, Perez. If you want to pay for catcher, forget Santana. I mean, I just wanted to show you guys again. I'm just kind of excited about that I developed this thing. But I just want to show you this. I'm going to bring my sheet in for today, and I show you this for a reason. And one of the things that we're doing when I put my sheets up online is I'm doing videos on like how to like interpret these. Like this right here is how I rate like the pitchers and like the hitters, whatever. And if you saw what it normally looks like on a normal pitching day, you'll have like 2 guys like 10 points ahead of like the other guys,
right?
Or even like 7 points. But to see like what like all these guys kind of bunched up together is just kind of rare for at least since I developed this thing, which is why like for me again, like if somehow one of these guys ends up just from groupthink or whatever, end up being like the real big chalk, maybe that would be the team that I'd want to try to play against them as far as hitting goes. I don't know, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I would advise. Like, I definitely think it's even in those mass centering situations. And one thing I think I've maybe in baseball, the variance you could always justify spreading out more and all that stuff. but it really is good to try to pick and hope for some things. And maybe you could let ownership dictate. I would say just really keep an eye on the weather there in KC, because that does worry me. And not to say they couldn't score some runs in these kind of things, but it's just harder to get the power that you really want, although it is a 6-game slate, so you may not need a ton of it. And KC is always a fun team to play because they've got a couple guys at the top who run like crazy, and then you've got some power bats towards the bottom. Even towards the bottom, they run Michael Taylor, Hunter Dozier, the bottom can hit. So yeah, they're kind of interesting. I mean, but I just think that I'm probably going to do it a different time.
The next game, if you get like an hour and a half break in between there, right? So the next game, if in my big lineup or the ones I'm not multi-entering, this probably is my favorite game on at least DraftKings, with respect to the hitting and with the pitching. So I do think that I shouldn't even say that. I think Bundy's a play. You know, I think Bundy's one of the top 3 plays. I mean, you saw who I like. That Bundy, Musgrove, Duffy, Gals, and whatever it is. Bundy's always got upside. He's always, he always has risk, right? Which you talked about. And it's funny. This is like your Hall of Fame, today. You got Gausman and Bundy on the same slate. And it always feels as though they always do pitch on the same slate. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about.
It used to be that used to be what we did all the time. Remember, Sheets? We just put Bundy and Gausman.
Yep. So yeah, Bobby's had a lot of he's had multiple good scores with both those guys. And I do like the Angels as probably my top stack on at least on DraftKings. And the thing is with these prices, you can get him in. I mean, you could play whatever. I mean, honestly, almost whatever you want. I mean, you could play Ohtani, Trout, Upton, Walsh, Fletcher. I mean, you really can get them in. And also on FanDuel also. So it's a question of ownership, a question of everything else. But if unlike my bigger lineup, I might just chalk out a little bit and play these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm fine with eating. It's weird to say the eating Bundy chalk because you always it's another one of those where I would say, okay, Sheets, you're going to be playing a bunch of lineups. And I know I just said about having a tight thing. Get at least 5 or 10% of a Texas stack in there just in case.
Oh, sure.
You get a stadium upgrade for them. It's 80 degrees out here in California. It's been really, really warm. The winds, you got a nice little breeze going out. It's not like incredibly humid or anything, but it's a decent hitting environment. And I love Bundy. Right now I have him as my top guy.
Yeah.
I actually think he's got as good a chance to be the top guy as anybody, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also don't mind these bats on the other side because we've seen this guy give up 6 home runs in the first inning before. Like it's happened. So you have cheap David Dahl, Nate Lau is expensive. Joey Gallo is too cheap for Joey Gallo, but for reasons so far. And then you've got Sola. You could make a nice little stack here to pivot against Bundy as well. So I agree that the Angels are going to appear to be the top stack. And I think that they probably are. Well, I think that the Dodgers are close. I think it's you get the Dodgers in an American League ballpark. You get the DH. It should be a pretty solid lineup that they put out there. But they are playing some. They don't have they're not fully healthy and playing everybody right now. So it's close between the two of them. I think that you're going to see more ownership on the Angels because of the pricing.
Yeah. So
I will try to play more Dodgers in that case. But I do like the Angels. I have them, and the Dodgers is clearly the top 2.
So Milwaukee and San Diego. First of all, again, we used to do this. Me and Big Al's brother used to do this all the time. You just bet against the freaking pitcher who pitched the no-hitter in his next game.
Yeah, I know you love this.
That was basically free money there. So I don't know what this was all about. This why they have him on April 16th, like an empty line here. Was he supposed to? No, he wasn't supposed to start that day. Okay, it was nothing. Okay.
I don't know why they put that there, to be honest with you. I may have missed something.
So Musgrove certainly has risk, man, at 10-2. He just does. You know what the risk is? The risk is he's not worth 10-2. That's the risk. And we're not actually sure yet. So I have no problem using other pitchers. And I also have no problem using him. And again, I hate to be that way, but hopefully my credibility from the last 15 of these things that we've done, where I basically just X'd out 90% of the pool and honed in on 2 guys, have given me a little credibility to get away with saying this today. But I like both these guys. I think the Musgrove and Woodruff, both of them could be the top scoring pitcher on the slate. And don't think Woodruff can't also. He had a kind of think he had kind of he had one good game and like one bad game.
Woodruff is good.
What's that?
He's a good pitcher.
Yeah, so I mean, he could certainly do it too. So I have I'll have a little of both, and then again, my main builds are not going to involve San Diego or Milwaukee, but I'll probably get to some of them in MME.
Yeah, I'm stuck. This is one of my hardest decisions is both these pitchers, which probably means I end up not playing them. Oddly enough, I feel like Milwaukee's lineup looks like you'd want to play the other pitcher no matter what. But I will say that Joe Musgrove can also this is a lot of money for Joe Musgrove based on the past. I've always been a Musgrove guy and actually think he's good. He's had some cake matchups, and then he had his old team Pittsburgh where he didn't even get out of the fifth inning in that game. That was his start after the no-hitter. So that sort of actually supports your theory. And this matchup is a good matchup, though. That's the only thing that's keeping me a little bit interested, and I think we can get at what we want, mostly hitting-wise. But I would feel more nervous to fade Woodruff, which feels weird because the Padres are so much better of an offense. It's not even measurable. But they have enough guys who will strike out in that lineup. Trent Grisham keeps getting scratched every day of the game, so we don't know for sure that he's going to be in. I could get behind some Woodruff here. He's a really I've always been a huge fan of Woodruff stuff, and even I just want to point out one more thing about that Musgrove thing. Maybe his leash was a little bit shorter because he'd thrown all the pitches in the no hitter and all that. I feel like Woodruff is a safe guy without struggling that we're going to start seeing back in the mid 90s all the time. And Musgrove, I just think it's going to fluctuate. So I like Woodruff, I guess, a little better than Musgrove. And I don't think I'm going to be stacking either of these teams, although I don't mind using a couple cheap bats here and there. So
if you didn't like any of all that, you get to play the Dodgers. So and you get to play Dodgers on a slate where the pitchers, make it easier for you to play the Dodgers, right? So the guy I really want to hone in on is the 2K guy. What do you think of him? What's his name?
Let's see if he's going to be in today, first of all. I mean, this is one of the things I don't know for sure that we can say who. It probably will be Noose.
Sheldon Noyce. Right, okay.
Yeah, Noyce. Sorry, I should be better at pronouncing the Dodger players' names, especially. But I'm not 100% sure that we know what their lineup is going to be. But look, anybody 2K in the Dodger lineup obviously is going to be in play, especially it's American League Park, so you don't have to worry about any pitchers behind you. There's plenty of runs they could score. There's a lot of ways you can get there at 2K and all that stuff. But I'm not looking personally to try and play him as a one-off. I would be looking to play him in stacks. Although I said the same thing,
for sure.
I said the same thing about Luke Fraley though, and he bombed one the other day. And I'm just trying to grab up some of my my stats on. Give me 1 second on.
Yeah, while you do that, I will emphasize that I do think the Dodgers are, top 2 stack on raw points for sure, and even with value, they're top 3 too. Especially if you want to create a stack with noise, then it's open season. You know what I mean? You could play you could really cram this stuff in. As usual, I would ask your opinion on which Dodgers you think are the best. Again, it depends who's playing, but Will Smith, Pollock, Seager, Betts, Taylor. Turner. They're all good. I guess we skipped over. I don't like Sheffield against the Dodgers, and I do like Dustin May. I think he's another one that's right in there. So all of a sudden we're avoiding him against Seattle. Just because there's Kevin Gausman on the slate. You know what I mean? He's another guy that I'm just going to have a decent amount of.
Yeah, so just from a theory angle of what I recommend to you and anyone else who's multi-entering or even just entering, I think if you're going to play Dustin May, try to play him somewhat with your Dodger stacks. Now, okay. The reason is that we saw the somewhat of a quick leash when he gets in trouble in a close game, and it happened last time out against Colorado.
Interesting.
The game against Oakland, we saw him throw 85 pitches, but that's because they had a 10-0 lead at one point, I think, during that time. Against Colorado in a tight game, 71 pitches, but they were down. I believe they were down 2-0 at the time, and the Dodgers have a good enough mid relief and everything to just go ahead and pull whoever if they need to get a pinch hitter. Now they don't need a pinch hitter tonight because they're playing in the American League Park, so that does give them a little bit more leash. I'm sort of going back and forth on this, but I think overall you're better off if you're going to play both to try and do it together. Also, I think it opens up, he's going to have not only a longer leash, but he'll be able to pitch from ahead. And I always like, if you can, getting the pitchers with the stacks if you can.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I asked you about that. So funny. The other day, you were thinking about something completely different. I tried to ask you the same question like 5 different ways, but you were like focused on something completely different. And that's exactly what I was asking. Hey, you think you should play the pitchers with the hitters the same team? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what?
Well, on like a 15-game slate, it doesn't mean as much to me, but on a 6-game slate, it's
right. Okay. So do you like, what about the hitters on the Dodgers?
So I would, I mean, Betts obviously will stand out. Turner's been on fire. I just would say go ahead and play the lefties who are going to be lower owned. As always, Seager, obviously #1, Muncy #2. And then try and get AJ Pollock. And I know he's struggled a little bit. He's been injured off and on and not really fully healthy this year. But I'll just bet on the long-term success and the cheap price on him. And Chris Taylor's getting a little pricey for Chris Taylor. I think I'd rather play Will Smith, but I will probably have some Chris Taylor also because I do like the Dodgers quite a bit. And whoever does crack the lineup, Noose or McKinstry it might be, or maybe who knows, maybe they'll play Fraley in the lefty. I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest with you, but I'm guessing it's going to probably be McKinstry and Noose. I got to say it right or whatever at one of these times, but yeah, I just think if you do it with the Dodgers, you can stack it so many different ways. Just playing Betts and Turner is not going to get you different. Even Betts, Turner, Taylor, Smith, like playing all the righties. That's just the guys who people are going to be going after. So I would try to get the lefties in.
What do you think? I don't know if you did this much of a deep dive yet, but did you look at pitching specifically for FanDuel or no?
We can talk about pitching for FanDuel for sure.
Yeah, because I was because on FanDuel I don't think I'm gonna. I might do the max enter thing over there too, but I do like. I like that. Maybe not. Maybe that's the idea too. I still think a bunch of guys can get the top score. I do. I think Musgrove and Bundy are the 2 best, but I mean, who's to say that Duffy? I think Musgrove would probably be, I won't say standout, but the thing is that you could get everything in that you want. Like I played around with the lineup with Musgrove, and you could actually play like Dodgers and Angels, like if you want.
Right.
Even with Musgrove. But what you can also do is you can filter in those San Francisco guys that I mentioned that make everything work. I
actually think if you're playing cash games, for example, on FanDuel, that Dustin May would be the guy you would look to.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think that the price discount is enough. And I don't necessarily see, I mean, Woodruff has a bad matchup. May has a good one. Musgrove has a great matchup, but is more expensive. And honestly, I don't think there's a huge different level between these guys at all. And I think Bundy is probably the best GPP one. I don't know. I mean, he's probably gonna end up owned too, but I think that he's got the upside for the guys in the price range that I'd want to play. But again, you could pay all the way up. You're right. Like, I just don't feel like I need to get Musgrove in, even though that's better than everybody else.
And I mean, again, we'll have the same conversation every time that I want to play these cheapy guys, but there's nothing wrong with Duffy. I'll end up leaving 3,000 on the table if I play him, but
yeah, I mean, I agree. I especially with that weather, and I'd love to, hopefully we'll know a little bit more about that as the day goes on, because I do think that could dictate a lot of what we end up doing. I think Duffy would become a significantly better play than he already is, and he's already a good play.
Do you want to do some one-offs or?
Sure, we can talk about some positions. So
that's what I mean.
Yeah, some like, again, cash on. So we'll just using FanDuel for a minute. One thing, I mean, we talk about, and it's you're not going to be alone in doing this, but playing Will Smith over here, especially because he's cheap. But you can play like a Will Smith and Muncy together. That's going to be an uncommon pairing for the Dodgers stacks. But at first base, I like Muncy. I like Hoskins, and I like. Let me see who else I've got on my list. Oh, I like Brandon Belt and Jared Walsh. Those are my 4 favorites.
So you're looking at FanDuel. So I was going to do the positions first.
We could do FanDuel and DraftKings too. I just jumped over.
So for me, I was going to go first base first. So for me at first base on DraftKings, I thought Belt was a good play. And this is like in addition to the other guys that we had already mentioned. I think Otani is a good play. Listella, I think, is first base eligible over there, I think. And Diaz, he's not much of a power guy, but he was cheap over there.
Yeah, I think Belt is the standout for me. I think Belt actually is like projection wise, like right near the top, and he's obviously cheap. So he'll be popular too. Other guys you can consider Josh Bell. I mentioned Hoskins already, and that's most of my guys. Like I'll mention again on FanDuel. Muncie too, but on FanDuel you can play the what's his name, Will Smith, and I think that he's a legitimate first base play at 2,900.
One guy I mentioned as part of the stack, and we talk about second base. Listella is eligible at second base as well, and then the next best guy I have at second base is from the same game as Fletcher. So nothing earth-shatteringly different second base for me.
Yeah, I liked Listella. Then Listella, I really like Tommy Edman, but he's expensive. But Listella and Fletcher would be my other two favorites, depending on who cracks the Dodgers lineup. But you can also, again, Chris Taylor is a good play at 4.7. And then if the weather was any different, Mike Brousseau at 3.6. But those are my guys. Those are it.
Shortstop, I already mentioned DeYoung. But if you wanted to, go for more juice, you could play Tatis or Seager, obviously. And then I think Brandon Crawford's a shortstop also, right? Out of that San Francisco game. But I like DeYoung and then Tatis and Seager.
Wow, this is like the most money anybody's ever paid for Brandon Crawford, I think, outside of Coors. This
is that right?
He used to be cheaper than this in Coors, like 3.4, because he would be like 2.1 for the whole season.
Oh, really?
He had 1 year where he literally was like he would have the worst year ever. But so speaking of the worst ever, we didn't mention one other guy, which was at second base, which was Matt Carpenter. Okay. But I like Didi. I really like Seager. And I think Tatis, if for any reason he's low owned, would be the obvious other guy to go to. But mostly it's going to be Seager, Didi for me, and a little DeYoung.
At third base, we mentioned Sheldon, whatever his name was already. Two guys that we just kind of glossed over that actually do stand out for me as one-off. So I figured I would just mention them. Is Alex Baum from Philly, and also from the same game, the Arenado I like also from third base. So those two.
I think it's a different game because I thought you were going to say the guy who I kind of liked, but
they're not playing each other. Sorry.
Yeah. I like Longoria.
Okay.
A little bit, and I'm interested to see where the ownership ends up. I do think people are going to play the Giants. People love to go after Chase Anderson, and I'll just say again that he's usually not as bad as everybody thinks he is. So, but again, I kind of get it a little bit today with the limited options, and Turner, Longoria, Baum, and then if we get Sheldon in the lineup, I'm just going to call him Sheldon from now on. Outfield.
Yeah, what position is Listella on?
Okay. First base, second base.
Okay, so what position are you saying? Outfield?
Yeah, well, outfield now. Yeah.
Outfield, I had Pollock, Trout, Dickerson, and Upton.
I like all of those guys. I will throw in a guy who's the best hitter in baseball.
Buxton is not playing tonight.
Oh, that's right, Buxton. No, I'm just kidding. I know he hasn't been as great as he's been in the past. He's actually hitting the ball well. It's just hasn't put up like the monster games. He's had a couple of them, but Juan Soto, always a great one-off, and especially with guys who are trying to struggle with their location, they tend to leave balls over the plate, and really good hitters like Soto don't make a lot of mistakes. Soto really doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I watch him. He makes an out, and it's like he smokes the ball at the second baseman or something like that, And Otani. I think you mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned Otani, but I like Dickerson, Otani, Upton, Trout. I think you mentioned some of those guys, and obviously Mookie, Chris Taylor out here. But then I also am going to play a lot of AJ Pollock.
Yeah, just not to fill everything in, but just you see, like if you don't play Musgrove, you can do whatever you want. Honestly.
Yeah, well, if you play those two guys, you can really do whatever you want, which I think is a completely legitimate. That's that's what I'm leaning as my main lineup as my SPs right now.
Yeah.
I like that.
You could take your pick if you want. You could play the Angels, you could play the Dodgers. You know what I mean? Like can't argue with either of them.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And then there's a lot of other ways you can even shuffle it around, like just that Brandon Belt price at first base really opens things up too.
Yep.
I love Brandon Belt when he gets out of San Fran because I still give him credit as a hitter, even though I know he's struggled. It's hard to play in San Francisco. Anyway. All right, I think this is a good little preview, and we're going to jump into some NBA, which should be really fun because who knows how much of it'll be relevant, but maybe it will be. By the way, I did really well. I've done terrible for the last couple of weeks, but I had a couple of really good lineups in the NBA, which I only played a couple lineups on Friday, the last show we did, and got all the spend ups right. Just one of my value guys didn't quite get there, so I ended up.
Which one? You remember?
It was the one who was recommended, who ended up being minimum cost, because then they said that there was coach speak that he was going to play like 28 minutes, which he did. He played like 24. Was it Dante Hall?
Oh, the Dante Hall, right.
I wasn't going to do it, and then I looked at it further, and I needed a min cost guy because I wanted to open some. So it ended up kind of biting me a little bit. He only had like 11 fantasy points, but no big deal.
All right, so we'll deal with the NBA in just a minute.
All right, let's do it. All right, good luck, everybody. We'll see you later tonight.